Good to go.
So, welcome to the September edition of the user group. Thanks to you can see some new faces and some regular faces as well. We'll do the usual format, 20 minutes for one presentation. We'll have Mike Wyman present on vendor invoice automation or accounts payable automations. And I don't think we've got a one tip.
No, just one.
No one tip today. And we'll go straight into Kartik's with Microsoft AI Builder for Power Platforms. A quick overview, which is fantastic. So without further ado, we'll get Mark Wyman to kick off. Mark,
cool.
can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. So it's over to me.
Yeah, introduce yourself and.
Yep, perfect. All right. So what I'll do quickly is I'm just going to share my screen. So please tell me when my screen comes up over here, and you can see my slide.
Yep.
We can see your
Got
slide.
it. Awesome. All right, guys, it seems like we've got a bit of a theme of a Power Apps AI Builder tonight, completely coincidentally. By way of introduction, my name is Mark Wyman. I'm a technical specialist for finance and operations based in Melbourne. I work together with Pete Schmidt in the West Australian market, specifically around finance and operations. And I'm really pleased to be presenting to you tonight. I would normally like to have done this in person. Unfortunately, my schedule doesn't bring me to Perth for at least another 3 weeks. So thought it'd be appropriate to jump in on the web and use the technology. So what I want to talk tonight about is Dynamics 365 AP automation using Power Apps AI Builder. Now, this is a topic that we came out in an internal hackathon last week, which we put together. The premise of what I want to show you tonight is around a business case, which is talking about companies that are throwing money out the window. So the whole idea here is that companies who, businesses in the Australian economy exchange approximately 1 billion invoices a year to a value of about $4 trillion, and on average payment is made 55 days after the invoice is issued. The cost per invoice, the cost of processing, is about $20 to $50 per invoice, and around 15% of those paper invoices have some kind of processing mistake. So the question is then asked, what would happen if by automation we could remove those errors? What would happen by automation? What would the benefit to business be if by automation we can remove those processing issues? Well, 100% automation will improve the national productivity by $20 billion. So we kind of thought, well, this is something that's worth going for. Let's see what we could come up with. And just in case you want to check on the facts, they're not my facts. They actually come from CFO.com on an analysis of expense management and account payable process cost. So what I want to show you tonight is a little bit of an AP invoice journey. Talking about a vendor emailing an invoice to AP. Now, emailing sounds pretty simple, but when you think realistically about it, in any organization, 80% of the vendors only have 20% of the technology. 20% of the vendors are your big vendors, your EDI vendors, the ones that have full IT integration, full service. But it's the 80%, that long tail of vendors, the construction subcontractors, the brickies, the farmers, the mom and pop small shop who are a vendor to a big organization that don't have the technology to do EDI, that really their technology is an email. They email an invoice to accounts payable. What we do is we use AI Builder to convert that invoice to data. The conversion of that does two things. Firstly, it creates an invoice in F&O. And secondly, it brings in the invoice image so that we can perform AP matching. Once AP matching is performed, we go through workflow approval. Workflow approval allows us to automatically post the invoice. And then we brought in another step to show the technology, which was to say, well, wouldn't it be good if when that happened, we could notify the AP clerk that it's been approved via Teams. So what we did is we used business events to bring in a Teams integration to be able to show that working. Following that is the standard process: generate your payment proposal, generate your EFT payment file, and process the payment. Below the line there, you'll see the digital hotspots. And I wanted to bring these up just to talk about what it is that we did. Well, first of all, we went into Power Apps. We used AI Builder to do the image recognition. In the case I'm going to show you tonight, we're doing it from a PDF file. Azure Functions was brought in to encapsulate the image in a package file that then allows us to import that image into finance and operations. For those of you who play with finance and operations, you will know that you cannot just import an image or a binary object into F&O. It has to come in through a package. So we used Azure Functions. Of course, we used Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. And then a technical genius that we managed to get onto our team last week came up with the idea of using Azure Kudu. Now, I'd never heard of it. Kudu, in my mind, is a big buck in Africa that tastes quite good. Sorry, that's a bad joke. But Kudu is an Azure function that allows you to do a website import and manage the process. And we brought that into the data management import function through finance and operations. And then lastly, we brought in Microsoft Teams, Office 365, and of course, we're using Flow as the workflow engine that does all the magic here. So before I move on, Pete and Munib, is that all clear? Are you hearing me fine still?
Yep, still here.
All good.
So let's have a look at that. Let's have a look at what it means. So to do that, I want to introduce you to the characters tonight. The first persona that I'll be playing is Contoso Electronics. They're a small electronic supplier to my company. They're going to email the invoice. The second persona I want to introduce you to is Iris Harris, the accounts payable clerk at Contoso Entertainment. As you can see, Iris has been working for Contoso for a while, and she's a very angry person because of the mistakes and the issues and the manual processing she has to do. So what we want to do tonight is help Iris process these invoices quickly, easily, and make her life easy. So I'm going to switch over and go into the demo. So again, Pete or Munib, if you could tell me when you see my F&O screen over here.
Yep.
Cool. So I'm in the vendor tax invoice entry workspace in finance and operations. For those who may not have seen it before, this is an entry point for accounts payable, looking at vendor tax invoices. And the place I want to start with from Iris is up here looking at her pending vendor invoices, because these are the ones that have not been approved. These are the ones that have come in. And as you can see, there are 3 of those invoices over there. So very simple. So what I'm going to do now, is I'm going to go to my email and I'm going to put my hat on as Contoso Electronics. And Contoso Electronics, being a small company, has a very simple IT setup. From their accounting package, they generate an invoice as a PDF and they want to send it to Iris. So I'm going to create a new message, and the new message is going to an email address called invoicesreceived@markwyman.com, which is my company. I'm going to pick an invoice over here. Unfortunately, because I do this quite often, I know my invoice numbers, but if I just browse over here, you'll notice I've got a PDF file, invoice Contoso 501. So I'll just attach that there. And to show you what it comprises, here is invoice 501. Invoice for a bunch of natural keyboards, some LifeCam, and some installation services over here. So that's pretty much what I have to do as the supplier. Simple process, a simple vendor invoice. And I hit the send button. The message is now being sent and it's off on its way to Iris. So we'll go back to our accounts payable vendor tax invoice entry workspace where we've got our 3 pending invoices. Now, what is happening in the background while I'm talking is that that's going through AI Builder. AI Builder is translating the document, taking the PDF, translating it to data, and bringing that in. So what's going to happen over here in a second, I'll just update. Now we can see there's 4 there. I select 4 and you'll see I've got invoice 501 over here. So I'll click into 501. And in 501, I now have my invoice over here. So what that's doing in the meantime, while I'm doing that, and there's a little bit of timing over here, it's going out to SharePoint and it's creating the package, which it'll import in a second over here. So just to save us some time on this, what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to go back a step, and like the good TV chef, I'll go to the one that I did earlier, 401, and show you what that means. So in 401, this is the finished product. It is brought in that invoice, it's created it, and it's brought in the invoice PDF document here. So all Iris now has to do is go update the match status. That is now matched, and she can post that invoice. All done pretty much all over for Iris. So it's made Iris's life very, very simple over here. In a second, that is posted. I can see that that is posted over there. So now if I switch up here into Teams, you'll notice I've now just got a message in Teams, vendor invoice 401 for purchase order is posted, invoice date is today. So for 7:13 p.m., which it happens to be here in Melbourne, so you can see that that was real time and live. So what we've seen over here, if I go back to my slide, is we've seen how we emailed a vendor invoice to AP. We've seen that AI has converted that to data, created the invoice, AP matched it, gone through approval, posted the invoice, notified the AP clerk of approval via Teams. So from here on in, my process is actually very straightforward. All I need to do now is go back in and start my payment process over here, if I can get a grip of it, start my payment process, and we're all the way. Iris's job is done. She can put down the frying pan, and she goes.
Just lost your sound a moment, Mark.
Audio's gone, Mark.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. My audio is, sorry, I'll put you on mute for a second. My audio is all here, but for
No audio.
sorry, can you hear me now?
Audio now. Yep.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of background noise. It seems to come and go. It's not on my side, so I'm not sure. Somewhere over the Nullarbor, we're getting a bit of background noise. So what I'll do is I'll go back to my slide here. So what we did is we did that far of the process, and then we thought, what about future enhancements? So we took that to a level. That was done in 2 days, by the way. Future enhancements. What else can we do with this now? Well, we thought we could do one of the next options, with one that I'm funny enough working on this, I was working on this afternoon, never got completed, is deep links integration with Teams. In other words, when I got to that message in Teams, to click on the record and pop up the screen out of finance and operations. We also thought, and maybe Karthik, you can pick this up in what you're going to do because you're also talking about a very similar part of the topic, is instead of a PDF, what about handwriting recognition? What would happen if this was an invoice from a subby or a brickie who sent us an invoice that was handwritten? How could AI Builder do the handwriting recognition to create that invoice? Or what if I took a photograph with my mobile phone and sent you a photograph? What about using that for AI Builder? And then, of course, it's to say, what would happen if we did extended workflows? So instead of that invoice coming straight in, before it comes in, send the invoice to the purchaser on the purchase order to be approved before it came into Iris's inbox as a pending invoice. So there's many options here in terms of how we can add to this very simple workflow. But the key thing over here is that now that we've broken the back of it with that AI Builder piece, we've opened this up into a number of areas. I was talking to another customer this afternoon who's got a similar but opposite problem. Customers send them sales orders as PDF, and they want to bring in those sales orders. And I said, well, why can't we flip this around? Instead of creating a pending vendor invoice, create a sales order from a PDF document or from a handwritten sales order. So the message out of this is that what we're doing with AI Builder here allows us to perform a scenario that takes unstructured data, converts it to a structured format, allows us to import and update that, and then use that in a business context to deliver value benefit. So with that, and I'm nearly at the end of my 20 minutes, according to me here, Munib, I think, I want to open this for questions about what we've done on any of these aspects.
Mark, are you able to show how you trained the AI model for the invoice recognition?
Horrible screeching noise in the background again.
Are you able to show how you trained the model for the AI Builder for the invoice recognition?
Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. I've got complete whiteout noise here. I heard the question is, can I show you? The answer is yes, I need to log into a completely separate environment to do so. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do it right now, but I can show it to you at a later stage.
That'd be great. So we'll just email you to maybe record how you trained the model?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm not sure if in what Karthik is going to do, he's going to cover off the training of the models.
I can give a basic demo.
Yeah, but it follows exactly the same process. So absolutely, please email me. That's why I put my email address up there. Connect with me on LinkedIn, email me. What we're intending to do, as I say, we took 2 days to build this, but what we're intending to do is actually package it so that it can be used by pre-sales people to be able to look at how they build this in their own context, in their own business sense. So we'll make the content available.
Thank you.
Question for me, Mark.
Yep.
What's the value add for, I know there's a third-party add-on that does a similar thing.
Yeah.
Does this kind of cover that area, or?
Yeah, very, very interesting point, Munib. The answer is we're not trying to take away from existing ISV solutions in the space. This was done as a proof of concept to prove unstructured data could be brought into a format that is used for in a business document context within finance and operations. Now, the reality is that realistically, this is an alternative to ISV solutions. Absolutely. It is not a it's not a fully prepackaged application, if you want to call it that. It still needs to be made a bit more robust. It was done to prove a concept. However, it does pretty much what is being done in the ISV solutions that are on the market.
Yep.
And again, I would imagine that had this technology been available a year, 2 years, 5 years ago, I think that the outcome in terms of ISV solutions may have been very different.
Yep. No more questions?
While I've got a second over here, the one thing I will do, being asked about the training on the models, one of the things I will show you over here is what we did with the demo invoice over here. To train the model, what we did, and I'll let Karthik pick this up and what he's doing. In the invoice over here, we identified the fields that were relevant for F&O to be able to create that invoice. So there was the invoice date, the invoice number, the due date, the item number, the quantity, the product name, the unit price, and the total over here. Those were fields that were needed to validate and train the model. Now, realistically, if you're training the AI builder for a different form of invoice, you would have to identify those same fields. So AI builder needed these fields being identified as key fields for the import, because again, when you look at the data entities in F&O, those are the fields that it needs and it drives off of. So in the CDS or in F&O.
Yep.
Other questions?
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
That's great,
Nope.
Mark. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Apologies for the noise issues. I'm not sure what's going on there. I'll leave you in Pete, Munib, and Karthik's capable hands. If anyone wants to connect with me again one last time, there's my email address, or you can get it from Pete. I'm happy to share how we did this with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
I might try to take a package. There we go. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Karthik Surmani, and I'm just my senior consultant working at Insight, which is technically, if you guys have been here for quite a long time, used to be called Ignia. I'm here today just to talk to you about Microsoft AI Builder for the Power Platform.
I'm not seeing your screen on Teams, Karthik,
Oh, you're
for
not?
some reason. Can you just share? Not come through yet. Yeah.
See that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as just out of curiosity, has anyone actually tried AI Builder at all? Cool.
Built avocado identifier.
All right, the card. Yeah. Okay.
Did you find it?
You found the avocado in a group of avocados, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just be going through just the different types of AI Builder models that you can build. But for those who don't know, I'll have a quick run through of what it offers. So yeah, what is AI Builder? So AI Builder is basically an algorithm that Microsoft uses in order to process information and make it easier for the users to break down information and put into proper solutions using the common data service. It's a very simple front-end based solution that users can basically log in and point and click and choose the information that they want to put in. And it's it's easily trainable, meaning that you can basically, if you have a nice subset of information, you can just upload it and it can determine the probability points at which you can then process to choose and basically distribute the information that you want. It's obviously on the Power Apps platform, which Microsoft's not calling nowadays, which encompasses all the different areas, including Dynamics, and you can leverage off of it using Microsoft Flow. So
when building, using AI Builder, you can choose between 4 different types of model types. I'll go through each of the individual ones, but the main 4 ones are binary classifications, form processing, object detection, and text classification. Now, right now it's currently in preview, but it's only available to the US and Europe. So if you're going to be starting one, that's probably to a trial mode and make sure you tick those boxes. Otherwise, it will be available in the October release. So firstly, the first model is binary classification. And basically, it's a model that is used to basically determine whether the outcome is a yes or no answer. The sample size, Microsoft recommends it to be around 1,000, but I highly suggest it to be a bit more because it can be, depending on the sample that you give, it can be a bit wonky at times. Scenario that you actually use this kind of algorithm would be just basic computational outputs involving, whether some person has a high or low risk profile, or whether like an intention is positive or negative. So basically, you have a true or false output out of it. So I'll just quickly just go through a slight demo. I can be useful. Do you have to share the whole screen off of that? Because then we'll just move it on to.
Yeah, you will do. Oh, just check. Yeah, I'm still seeing your PowerPoint screen shared.
Yes, you do it.
All right. So, starting off, when you go into Power Apps, you can, if you started it from scratch, AI Builder is actually already shown in your pane. But if you're new, if you already have an existing environment, you have to go through a couple of setting changes just to get into it. So the first step is actually to train the model. I've already created the models here for each of the scenarios, but basically it's quite easy. It's like a wizard. So you for the first step, it would, in terms of binary classification, it would ask you what records or what entity in terms of Dynamics 365 that captures the information you want to put in. So in this scenario, I created an entity for a customer's intention. So you have a scenario where a customer comes in and they have the intention to buy something, and based on that information, you can determine whether they'd be able to be part of a certain subscription model, or based on a probability value, you can either trigger a workflow to process other information around there. So when uploading the information, you create your model and you choose the fields that are related to the entity that you want. In this case, the information, well, based on that information, just calculates the probability points based on the fields that are being given when uploading it into the model. So I uploaded about 1,000 records for the customer intentions, and based off of that model, it gives a probability value, which is triggered based off of the field. So in this case, the page value field captured in that record, in each of the records, has a high probability point on that. So based off of that, any new customer intentions records that would come in would then output that probability value into Dynamics, into a custom field that gets created, as well as shows an output of whether it's a true or false value based on that probability. So if I just quickly go to the Dynamics, just quickly create an app here. So you have your shopper intentions, which shown here shows that a couple of them have high probability points, 0.7. So anything above 0.5 would, I guess, would actually trigger a yes output, and under it would trigger a no. So based off of that, any new information that would come in, you would get that value, and then you can then accordingly create a flow or any other trigger on that. So that's binary classification.
Can I ask?
Yep.
The data that you loaded, is it another CDS entity or?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So I just imported a solution that had that entity in, and then you just map it across with that.
Okay.
With those values. Now, the second process, the second model is form processing, which is pretty much what Will said about what they use in their scenario for processing invoices. So basically, what it basically does is you just pass in a sample of forms, and it determines what are the possible fields I can capture, and you can map towards. So the minimum amount of samples is 5. And I've noticed that there are certain discrepancies. So let's say, for example, if you're uploading an invoice and there's multiple lines, you really need to be specific on the amount of lines that you have. Otherwise, there could be some sort of deviation. So obviously, the more samples you provide, the better and more accurate the output will be. So just for an example, I've uploaded a sample of 5 invoices through the model. I'll just quickly browse through the model. So I uploaded 5 invoices of the same sort of template, but different values across it, and it was able to map it across 10 different form fields. So the great thing about, I guess, form processing is that it's quite easy to view. So you can see what fields it's mapping across, as well as you can quickly test to see whether the outputs that you want would correspond to what you need. So, for example, I can do a quick test over here. I can upload points. And it would pinpoint the areas that you would think it would map to the fields that we provided. So the green areas are, it also gives like an output of how confident it is in terms of mapping. So for example, the address is 53%, but obviously if you add more information there and a little bit more variation, you'll be able to capture it more accurately. 100% on balance due and different areas here. So following to that, you can then put it into a Microsoft Flow process to map those fields and put it into the relevant form fields in Dynamics.
If you're confident, if I'm confident in that confidence, I'm saying I'm accepting that it's actually identified the right data set or segment.
Yeah.
Next time around, would it have to pass through this again, or would it just say it's done now?
Well, this is just a sample data, but
Yeah.
Any new data that it puts in, it reads off of it, and then it just dynamically checks it.
Okay. So if, let's say, it missed something, and I'm going, okay, no, it's rather it's this area here that you should get that from.
Yeah.
Is it learning from that experience?
Yes. So the more you add in, you can always upload more and then properly check, because every time you actually put a sample data inside the model, you have to make sure that it's actually correct. So that at that point is where you probably want to make sure that everything's correct.
Karthik, I have a query, because of my understanding, it's basically all the AI tools is essentially about weights. So it's not necessarily about having all the time all the right data, but it's essentially the right denominator of the data that essentially you have in a domain.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to say is, like, it's not between zero-sum game. It's like what the whole range of data that you have?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the binary one is it's quite a yes or no tactic, but this is quite different in that respect, where it does factor multiple areas.
If you had different types of invoices coming in from different suppliers, would you have to train the model for each supplier?
Yes, you would. Yeah, you would. You probably would have to have a different model for each process, because it depends on the positioning as well. So yeah, and I haven't really tested it out. It's still quite new. So
yeah,
obviously it's in previews.
It's quite clever, and it's actually reading the labels off the form as well. So it goes, oh, I can see a start date. So that start date may move around the form on different invoices, but it's pretty good at figuring out. So it's not just doing like an OCR. It's actually quite smart looking at the label pairs and the data.
Can it do the tables as well?
Yeah, you can. I just didn't do this.
Okay.
So, yeah, sort of the repeatable tables, yeah.
So obviously you can, I don't know if we have time for this, but I quickly just created within like a 10-minute span, just created a quick Power App, which actually Power Apps, by the way, they have, if you notice in the tabs, they actually have a new feature to allow AI builder functionality. So you can usually drag and drop form processing inputs through. So I usually just drag and drop this whole analysis bit here and map the outputs across to the fields that you want. So again, it's the same process. You just upload the invoice and just output it across to those fields.
Could AI Builder reach into an existing system to like Dynamics and say, I have pre-existing order data, then match against this?
I'm not too sure about invoice in terms of form processing.
Yeah, I'm just any data in a ERP.
Yeah, it depends, because in terms of the following, when I talk about like text-based and binary classifications, you could actually map them to any of the entities in your CDS model.
Yeah.
So if you do have information there, like existing samples in Dynamics that's being captured, you can map that entity and then map those specific fields across.
Yeah, there's a lot of applications, just thinking enterprise asset management and things like, you have this whole system built for it. This can reach into that going, I've recognized something. Is it in the database?
Yeah,
It's not
I'm sure there would be a way.
Yeah, with the image recognition which you're going on to, there are certain industry databases of standard images for stuff, and you can use those to train a model on. But the other thing we found is if you take something like power lines where faults are very, very rare, we've actually used some of the gaming technology. So you actually create a 3D render to simulate the fault, and then you train the model on the computer generated images and simulate it that way. So yeah.
So the next one is object detection. So object detection is basically, it's what it says. You pass in a bunch of images and you're able to map across specific objects in those images to tags, which are basically the areas of classification. So for example, if you're taking a picture of a bunch of products, you can map the products to those tags and then process it accordingly based on that. Another example is obviously if you're taking a picture of a machine and you're trying to use field services, and you want to take a picture of the machine, you can actually probably grab information related to that product just on the fly. You want to demo, so I create another model. So as you can see across the board, the model creation for basically each of the classifications are very similar in a way where it's pretty much handling. You go through one step to another. You put in the information in, you map across certain areas to that, and then you let the AI and machine learning process it and determine the probability around it. So for this scenario that I created was one that I picked up actually on the Microsoft site. It's basically determining what are the types of green tea cans, what types of green tea cans are on the screen, and what products they relate to. So the one thing to note about the I guess, object detection is that each tag needs to have 15 different images at least in order to determine what position it's at. And it's actually preferable to have the object as many different types of images with different lightings in different areas to get an idea of where the object is. So for this scenario, I had 3 tags, and I provided 30 images, and around each of those tags had around 15 to 16 objects captured. So it's the same process that's very similar to form processing. I just need load. So I got 3 different cans here of different types of tea. Hopefully, it should detect what each one is. There you go. So you got green tea, and it gives the chances or the probability around Same case with forms processing. So before, there's put into a Power App to easily upload it and process it as well.
If we've got time at the end, I'll show you a quick one we did at the same hackathon that Mark did. That's a bit of a fun one that you can do.
And the last model is text classification. So as with the other models, are pretty self-explanatory. You get an idea of what's going on. It's basically parsing information and mapping that information to specific tags. So for example, if someone comes in and they want to provide feedback, you can then, based on that text that they're writing, you can determine whether the intonation is actually good or bad, or it's aggressive, or things like that. So the more samples that you give around there, you will determine that. So one scenario that I created was around feedback for a hospital. So obviously a hospital gets a lot of feedback around the quality of care. So I created a model which talked to another CDS entity that had the information of those feedback. It was just a basic CSV file that I imported into CRM. So I got the tags which I need to map to, and I got the text that the people forwarded in. So that gets imported into the model. Yeah, so that gets imported into the model, and then you can easily test out based on the text that you input what type of tags are related to it. So, for example, I can just say staff was good here. Hopefully, I can get some sort of tags around these ones. Yeah, so based off of that, you can map specific tags on it and then follow through that. I also created, I don't know if you have time for this, but I also created Flow. So the great thing about Microsoft Flow and AI Builder is that it leverages off of AI Builder through grabbing information, putting into a proper payload, which then you can use that payload, a JSON payload, to parse and process through to other areas. So I created a quick Microsoft Flow that leveraged off of the text classification. I'll just be running it through it. So it's manual trigger, but the idea is that in Flow, you can just actually add your AI model in the steps of Flow. So you can select the model that you want, and you get a payload out of it, which then you can then parse, as I said before. So you have your parsed payload here, and then you can decide on what you can do with those results. So in this case, the results that I got is to check whether the tag is related to staff, and the actual score, the underlying score, is above 0.63, and in that case, it would then chuck out an email. So it's quite robust. You can actually just connect it to, obviously with Flow, if you've tried Flow, it has so many different connectors. You can connect it to so many different things and really test it out. But yeah, you can see that. I hope you guys can see the actual potential it can offer in terms of flexibility.
Can this be used offline?
No, it's completely online. You have to, yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, as I said before, those are the basic 4 models that are available, and I'm probably going to be using it more often. It's pretty good, and yeah, it's available in preview. You can use it on for in US and Europe, and yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Do you know anything about licensing, or has anything been announced? Or
Well, I've read that it's based off the Power Apps license, so you pay, I think, 500 for 1 million.
okay, so the calls.
Yeah, something like that. Pete, do you know anything about that?
I don't know the exact figures, but it will be consumption based.
Yeah.
Number of calls. Yeah. And as you say, you can build it into a Power App, but you can also just call it to a flow. So in Mark's example, it was just Flow was calling a model and returning some values.
If you've trained the model and you've gone back and realised that somebody's tagged the wrong object, as an example, can you retrain by removing that particular image from the trained model?
Oh, I haven't tried that actually. I don't think so.
Yeah.
From my understanding, that you have to probably create a new model.
A new model, yeah.
Well, you can create a new draft model because you can add more
That's true.
images to
Right,
it.
okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see how AI starts featuring in FinOps in the future, because there's a wealth of stuff that we've always wanted to never done. This is the entry point into that.
Yeah.
We do have a new product called fraud detection as well. So that
Yeah,
specifically,
yeah.
that's a specific one. But there's all sorts of things you can do with looking at potential irregularities around payments and things like that. Like, is it called Benford's Law? I'm trying to think what it is. There's certain numbers appear in certain frequencies. So if I've got a expense limit of $100, if I have a lot of $99 claims, that's a bit suspect, and there's some mathematical frequencies of numbers which appear. I'm sure somebody will build a model for that. That's what the banks use to detect fraud detection as well. So yeah,
Would have been good at health after the release of the Triple C's report yesterday or today.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
yeah. If we've got time, I'll just quickly.
Ask away.
Oh yeah, I had a quick question.
Yeah.
Can you able to comment on the kind of privacy stuff? Say if I wanted to train on or test on somebody's real passport, does Microsoft keep that image or something? And I'm concerned that it's going to violate the conditions that person uploaded
Credit
the
card
passport
details.
to you. Yeah, right.
I'm not too sure. I mean, it would obviously be stored somewhere on the Microsoft page, so it would probably,
It's all in the CDS. So there's two things you have to do to try out AI Builder. One is spin it up in North America, and the second thing is you need a CDS database. So that CDS database will all be encrypted, and when the Australian signals are actually standard or whatever. But obviously, if you were using people's personal information like that, you would obviously have to have consent from them to do that. But it's as secure as any other CRM data that you have in financial data that you have in the system.
is Microsoft set up for criteria management?
I don't think, no, well, with other data, we always say the data is your data. It's not like Facebook or something like that. That once you've uploaded it, we claim it. No.
Okay, thanks.
Use
The training of the models, Pete, what happens there? Is there a global sort of initiative to sort of say we've noticed that these are invoice types, and so the training becomes easier across not just your environment, but is there a thought to sort of saying, well, we understand the metadata of this document type, therefore we'll provide you an invoice accelerator or a
yeah. So look, I've gone into. Oh, you stop sharing.
No, Teams is there. Yeah, there it is.
There we go. Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah, that's right.
So when you go into AI Builder, there is one pre-built model, which is the business card reader. So that's one that Microsoft built and maintained. There's other, not AI stuff, but virtual agent is another interesting one and might be a good topic for another day. But when I spoke to the product manager about that, and I said, well, why would you use that rather than Azure Bot Service? And he said, we've been using it internally, and with HP and Macy's over the last 2 years, it's been trained on 500 million conversations. So our customers don't have anywhere near that amount of data to train their own Azure Bot Service. If they're a very niche industry with particular language and that, then yes, they might be able to get better, and it might be able to get 1% better. But our model is a SaaS AI model, and we're going to keep enhancing the learning of that model. So I mean, at the moment, I don't think you consent to share invoice data and so on, but I can see over time, the more people use it, potentially we can use that to help make the model better.
Yeah.
All I wanted to show you just very quickly, this was something we did at the same hackathon, which was, it was a bit of a fun one we did. There was a serious side to it. So the scenario we gave was on a mine site, you need to detect if things are out of place. We did it with Lego, and we said, oh, if there's a bear on the site, you want to know about it. But you could see in a hospital, for example, a nurse might want to say, well, where's the nearest wheelchair? And it would look in the cameras down the corridors and find a wheelchair and work out where the nearest one is. So there's lots of different scenarios. But this is one we wanted to get kids interested as well. And I just wanted to really show you, we trained the model based on some Lego images. We trained it to recognize certain things, so dynamite, a truck, gold, bear, and so on. The way that we built the Power App is you literally just drop the model in there, and then there was a gallery, and all you have, so the object, the detector object returns a collection of vision objects, and these were the things. And then all I had was a hidden gallery that was filtered for bears, and if there was more than one record in there, it would set off an alert. So if I just show you this one playing, and I'll start off, I'll just pick a picture of that hasn't got a bear in it. So you might find a few things in there because there's a truck and there's a bobcat in the background as well. The Wi-Fi is a little bit slow. Yeah, so there it has. It's actually found drilling machine, the truck, and the bobcat, but no bears. But if I pick a different image,
Left bottom area.
now what we did with this as well is we had some flows that were triggered. So you'll see an alert come up in a minute when it's found the bear. And we had a trigger that did two things, or several things. One was it sent a message to Teams, so it broadcast it to everybody on the site. And then we actually had an IoT-enabled light bulb that went red, that turned on. That was just done using Flow. And then we actually created a work order in field service, and so the bear catcher went out and dealt with it. And when you're all clear, when he said close the work order, the light went green, and the Teams message updated to say it's all safe, back on site again. What was really cool about that, there was 4 of us that built it in about 2 hours. There was no code involved. It was just using Flow and Power Apps. And then the other thing we did as well, we looked at, we did a reverse lookup on the lat long from the device to get the address, and then we also used MSN Weather to find out the weather conditions. So it was just a very simple kind of scenario, but it was quite a fun one to do, and it's probably an easy one for people to practice with at home. The irony was it took me longer to build the Lego than it did to build the AI model to train it. So yeah, just another example of how you do it. Okay, cool.
Cool, thanks. Yeah. Thank you. I think that comes to the conclusion. I just wanted to remind everybody, please sign up if you haven't registered on the site. Kind of gives us the numbers for coming months. D365UG.com/Perth to get notifications. Also, we're going to go back to our usual schedule of last Thursday of the month, so put that in your calendar. The other thing I want to ask is if there are any volunteers who want to speak on any topic. Doesn't have to be technical. I know technical guys have dominated in the last few months. So yeah, feel free to just basically shoot off a message and we'll make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Some of the guys at work have had trouble signing up on.
Yeah, we talking about my
Yeah.
I think it's my browser. I use Brave and it's got some.
It's on the phone number?
No, just trying to sign in. I'm already made